Boston, and Brandon will see the horrors unfold. From haunted houses to the darkest scenes, immersive horror, it's more than just dreams. Buckle up, we're on the road. Horror road trip, let the fear unfold. Extreme haunts and ghosts we'll find in the rearview mirror, leave the world behind. Through eerie woods and ghost towns lost, discussing horror movies, no matter the cost. The thrill of the scare, the rush of the fright, we're chasing darkness all through the night. Buckle up, we're on the road. Horror road trip, let the fear unfold. Extreme haunts and ghosts we'll find in the rearview mirror, leave the world behind. Through eerie woods and ghost towns lost, discussing horror movies, no matter the cost. The thrill of the scare, the rush of the fright, we're chasing darkness all through the night. Buckle up, we're on the road. Horror road trip, let the fear unfold. Extreme haunts and ghosts we'll find in the rearview mirror, leave the world behind. Paranormal whispers in the dead of night, Chris, Boston, Brandon chasing every fright. Lights flicker, shadows grow on this horror road, there's so much to know. From coast to coast, every haunted sight, immersive horror, oh what a sight. Discussing chills that crawl up your spine, with horror road trip, it's always time. Buckle up, we're on the road. Horror road trip, let the fear unfold. Extreme haunts and ghosts we'll find in the rearview mirror, leave the world behind. So hit subscribe, enjoying the ride. With horror road trip, there's no place to hide. Every scream and every ghostly slip, come along for the ultimate horror road trip.
What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday? Is that what today is?
Is it already Wednesday? Holy crap.
Yeah.
Dude, this week is flying.
They are. Just real quick, thank you all for joining us in chat. See a lot of familiar faces. Haven't seen you guys in a while. I know we haven't been live too much lately. Just a lot of things in the works, and hopefully we will have some really cool things coming for you soon. Tonight's live is kind of a special live because it is about something that happened in the immersive horror community that needs to be talked about, because this is why this panel was made, about safety and making sure experiences are okay to go to. And there was an event that happened about a week ago, and it was brought up to us on one of our members only lives about a incident where somebody got hurt. We're going to dive into that, but I do want to invite and introduce our panel. Right now we got Carrie, our moderator. Thank you for joining us today, Carrie. And
thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And then we got our other moderator, that guy in the house. So all you guys, Boston will be in chat. Just keep an eye out on you guys. And then we have the one and only Tarmus Darknell.
Tarmus. His name, it's Thomas.
What's up, Tarmus? It was a blend between that guy and Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's okay.
I like it.
I like it too.
Hey, I know this person. Thanks for joining. That was that's who I met, right?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. That's so cool. Thank you for joining. So we are here to talk about an incident. Now I'm going to leave the person's name out of it that was injured. I know that if they want to speak up in chat, they can on their own. I had told them that I would leave their name out, though. As for, I want to kind of bring up, so when this happened at an experience in Chicago, and I don't feel like we can do this without saying the name of the experience, especially when I want to read that person's statement, which I
Say
feel.
it.
Man, it's so hard to say. So it's La Casa. Thomas, how do you say the rest of the name?
It's La Casa de Satanas.
La Casa de Satanas. Okay. So this is honestly an experience that's out there that it's been on our radar, but
they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, they've been around for years. The thing is like they're not known for a very hardcore show. More of a storytelling and messy, I should say. Like not messy as in bad, but messy as you're going to get stuff all over you.
And more abstract performance art as well.
Yeah. So to hear that this is a place that something happened to, it's like, wow, okay, I guess it doesn't matter how ruthless of a show that you may usually advertise. It can happen at any show. So I wrote to La Casa. I told them, introduce my name and that we had heard that during the week's performance of Till Death, 3 audience members may have experienced slight injuries. While we believe that there was no ill intent, we understand the nature of immersive experiences can sometimes involve unpredictable elements. We would like to inquire about this on any official statement or response from their team regarding the reports. So I want to read the questions I asked, and then I'll read the answers to those questions. Question 1, I said, can you confirm whether the instance involving the audience injuries occurred during this week's performance? Amelia, who is the creator of La Casa, was the one to reply to me. Said, I can confirm on our last run, there was 6 groups prior that there was 1 injury. The definition of an injury, I think, is fair here in the realm of extreme haunts is something that requires medical attention. It was an ankle occlusion fracture from going down a slide that we tested extensively and had no issues with in our testing. 2 days after that, I was told by a guest that they were sore from the experience, but by no means needed medical professional. It was their knee, however. So Amelia saying there was the 1 injury, and then somebody told her a few days later of another one.
And just to interject for just a moment, that person with the knee injury, they are still having issues with their knee.
Okay. Question 2, I asked if there were, what was the nature and severity of the injuries. They said I've just described the injuries above. Question 3, were medical personnel on site and how was the situation handled in real time? Their response to that, Amelia's response to that is, I am trained in first aid CPR, but I am not a medical professional, and I was present. The injured party was immediately sat down. Ice was applied to the ankle. Treatment followed RICE, which is rest, ice, compression, and elevation. When it was appropriate to move her, we assisted her upstairs into the lobby. We helped investigate open urgent care locations. We decided that we would rather wait till morning to seek treatment. We ordered her an Uber to her hotel and made sure she would have a wheelchair escort available to her room from the Uber. We followed up with her the following day with the injured party. Any comments on that last part from you guys?
I mean, if it's swollen and you can't put weight on it, it's probably best to take them straight to urgent care.
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Yeah,
And
that,
you should know where that is. You shouldn't have to research it.
Okay.
yeah.
Question 4. Are there any changes or safety measures being considered in response to these reports? We immediately took out the slide portion of the show in response to the injury, as we did not want any other guests to injure themselves on something that had potential for harm. And the final one, I said, do you have any general comments or reassurance for future attendees regarding safety protocols in place? And the final answer I got was yes. As far as safety goes, since 2013, this has been the first time we have had an injury requiring medical attention. It is not our goal to ever harm any guest or cause any injury that requires medical attention. That said, accidents do happen, and unfortunately happened on the first day of the show. Our response was to omit the potentially dangerous part for all subsequent shows. And that was the response from La Casa. So everybody's probably like, so what happened? You know, we you now know somebody got hurt, somebody went to the hospital, and there was a slide involved. So the injured party had sent me this. They said I didn't have to read it verbatim, but from the time that I got that response from Casa, the injury got worse. It wasn't just a fracture. It led to an actual major surgery that has now changed this person's life for the next several months because they're unable to really work on it. They missed out on many experiences that they were supposed to go to. And, you know, on top of that, I mean, these sorts of injuries can affect you way down the road as you get older. They can come back and haunt you, you know? So the person that got hurt, what happened was they went on February 13th, 2025, and suffered a severe ankle fracture during a slide type stunt at La Casa, requiring surgery and the insertion of a metal hardware titanium plate and screws. The haunt was held at a basement in a local Chicago art gallery center. To enter the haunt, the crew had patrons climb into a large Amazon-type box on top of a steep set of stairs that led into the basement below. There was a makeshift plexiglass ramp/slide along the steep cellar stairs. Oh my God, that's a tongue twister. The patron was put in the large box that went hurling down into a thin mattress. It was about 45-degree angle, straight down, no curves like regular slides. The box impact was extremely sudden and abrupt, and unfortunately, in her case, the exact force needed to cause the fracture. Okay, so, and I want to put this up here. Amelia was notified that it was avulsion. Am I saying that right?
Avulsion.
Avulsion at the urgent care on Friday. And then once the doctor on Monday, the orthopedic surgeon recommended surgery due to it being a serious fracture. Amelia was notified that day. Okay. So, yeah, so we're looking at this show, you know, based on what the person that was injured, the injured party, heard from other workers and whatnot after the injury, started to realize that maybe it was poorly tested, in their opinion. Amelia says it was extensively tested. How do you prove that? Did you have something to say, Carrie? I thought I saw your finger.
No, sorry.
Okay. So I think that's what brings us into this. This isn't to raise pitchforks at La Casa. This is to talk about, as a whole, these experiences that we go to. Should there be some sort of regulation and safety guidelines at each of them that is like a standard that has to be hit? And that's kind of what we're going to have this open roundtable discussion with the five of us about. Now, Carrie, you've attended a show.
I have, and I'm a new person. I'm a newbie here.
Yeah, so that's what I want everybody to know, that everybody here has attended a show. So we all have kind of a say on how we feel. And then also there's a few of us up here who have created or worked on shows in the background. So Thomas, this one, when this happened, you seem to be pretty vocal about it.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts about not only how is this incident handled, but how incidents like this should be handled?
Well, I think that this incident in particular was handled a little recklessly. Some of the communications from La Casa just weren't what they should be, at least in my opinion. La Casa themselves have not made any kind of public statement about it or public apology or any kind of reassurance of like ongoing safety measures. And as like this gets talked about more, there's been kind of a slew of minor injuries that have come to light in talking about it that have all happened at La Casa. Now, La Casa in particular, they are good people. Like you said, we don't want to raise like pitchforks about La Casa because the shows that they make are very visually captivating, stunning, have a lot of purpose. But the way that they handle and approach safety is very different from most other groups because they don't consider a lot of things that other groups would consider, especially those that really put safety first. In this particular incident, the ramp or the slide that they built was very steep. It didn't, like, if you think of a normal slide, if you go to a playground, right, something so common as a slide, it has like a curve to kind of slow the descent. And this one was straight down into an old mattress, like an old thin mattress. And a mattress isn't very good at stopping momentum. It's not a crash pad. It's not something that people can fall onto. With the big like uptick in like people who are climbing, like doing hobbyist climbing, you can get crash pads for really cheap. Like a good one is like $200 or $300. Just not having that there as a bare minimum is a pretty blatant like safety concern. People shouldn't be falling onto mattresses. They should fall onto something that people are designed to fall onto. As a safety measure. And in this case too, they're hiding the bottom from the audience, so they don't know what's coming below them, and so it's just kind of a steep drop into something that the audience can't predict, so they can't brace themselves to land. And then with the way that it was handled in particular, and I am close to the person who was injured, so I've been hearing about it as it progresses, and as that injury was discovered to be worse, because not only was it the avulsion fracture, but it was actually a tibial fracture as well. So there's a plate and screws that are in that person's leg now forever, which is just completely unacceptable in my opinion. But yeah, like after it happened, they didn't have someone on site who was not performing in the show that could stay with that person who was injured while the rest of the show carried on. So they didn't have like a nurse on site or a paramedic, which with a lot of shows is maybe not necessary, especially if it's not intense, right? Or if they're just doing things that are kind of messy.
I want to stop you there, Thomas, because I think all shows should have that.
Oh, I would agree. I know that
just
I do.
for the fact, I mean, you don't know. a very psychological show could really mess somebody up mentally. And, you know, in order to, I know some of us had talked saying the show should have halted completely. If that is out of the realm of possibilities of what the creator wants to happen, then yes, you need to have that person there to pull that person out to safety and decomp immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree on that. Like, especially if the only person there that had any kind of medical training was her, and she was performing in the show, she should have stopped the show for the rest of the audience members in the group and been there to be with the person who was injured and make sure that things were okay. Immediately handle, you know, emergency resources, urgent care. I mean, the other big issue for negligence in this situation is not immediately knowing where that clinic or that emergency room is, or that urgent care clinic. Like, you shouldn't have to research it on the spot, because it looks unprofessional and it's kind of dangerous. Like, if something immediately bad happens that needs like immediate urgent attention that you can't provide on site, especially if you don't have a paramedic. Like, having a nurse on site is good. They know most things to do, but they're not a paramedic and they don't have the resources that a paramedic would have. So finding a way to take them to that urgent care or that immediate help, you shouldn't need to research that. You should just have it on speed dial. It should be like the most recent search in your maps or whatever, so you know how to get them there. You should have someone who's able to drive them there.
Yeah. It would have resources immediately available.
And that's a really good point, and how far away they are from places that could help. For example, McKamey Manor, I know, like, it's a good 30 minutes for a 911 call to get to his house, and that could be way too late.
Absolutely.
I'm also with Thomas on this, that like it should be a full stop on the show. Priority goes to the well-being of the guest, in my opinion.
So do you feel full stop on the show because the only paramedic was acting? Or if this happened and, like, let's say the paramedic was a free extra person?
No, all right. So if you had a paramedic and that was their sole duty was to be there for that person, I could understand the show continuing on. But in this instance, it sounds like this woman was the only source of medical care.
All extreme launch could have a worst case. So where is that line at, guys? Like, what do regulations look like? How do they hinder the creation of future projects and, like, benefit us at the same time?
Well, this is where I'm going to speak up, because I am vehemently against any type of regulation in the industry. Vehemently. Now, I say that with the with a question: is how do you define regulation? What is your definition of regulation?
I mean, I don't really have a definition right off the bat. I mean, this is just kind of open conversation, you know.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because if we're talking about regulations as far as like an industry standard versus like a regulation, regulations have to be enforced, and they have to be enforceable, and they have to be enforceable by somebody else, right? Which can lead to, you know, a number of different things, fines, you know, criminal stuff like that. So if you're talking more or less like a unwritten industry standard, then yeah, I'm all for that. But anything that involves, you know, some sort of legislative, down, then no, I'm 1000% against that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get to the point where, like, actual laws or legislative stuff would happen with it. But I do think, like, an industry standard is a possibility. I'm personally not sure how for it I am. I see the benefits and I see the negative aspect of it on the creator standpoint. Like, it's such a double-edged sword, and that's why I think this is a great conversation to have.
Yeah,
Well, I
I mean,
mean,
there's a lot of things that go into that too. I mean, like we're talking like, a lot of these places are smaller like businesses that, couldn't possibly uh afford like insurance plans and whatnot. Like I know 17th Door has like huge uh
Insurance.
I'm losing, yeah, like huge payments on their insurance for just if stuff happens, not even when stuff happens.
Mhm.
I mean, I think one thing too to bring up is that, like, even if you don't expect an injury, you need at least at a bare minimum someone who has some medical or first aid training, who can be there outside of the show to immediately take care of whatever's happening. And you need to make sure that they have the resources to do whatever treatment is required on site. Now, not all treatments can be done on site, right? But in the case of La Casa, they had ice and an old T-shirt to apply it. They didn't have a bandage or a full first aid kit. It was really egregious how lacking their immediate first aid was.
Mhm.
well, I mean, to me, La Casa seems like it's complacency mixed with careless disregard, in my opinion. I mean, TD or Thomas said earlier that there's been there's been a lot of injuries there, right? And if they're saying that they tested all this stuff, I'm calling bullshit. Because if they tested any of this stuff, at least the way it was explained to me, which is very similar to what was explained to Thomas, then they could have seen pretty clearly and very early that it was that's that this stuff is not only possible but it's probable,
Yeah.
right? They didn't.
And
They clearly did not have any type of safety plan. They didn't have a risk management worksheet. They didn't go over halting procedures. They didn't go over medical procedures. They didn't have anything written down so that everybody that's on staff knows exactly what to do at what time. They may have rehearsed, but they only rehearsed the show. They didn't rehearse scenarios, right? So
and
that
it's also worth to, not to interrupt, I'm so sorry, but when testing like something like that, right, or a stunt, if you're testing with your own team who knows what's going to happen and knows what's expected, you're not testing for an audience. You're testing for the best case scenario, not the worst case scenario. Like, you never know what an audience is going to do. You never know how an audience
Mhm.
member is going to react to something or how they're going to do something. My favorite example is if you have someone in a blindfold and tell them to get in a car, you are going to see, and you have, say, 15 audience members, you are going to see 15 different ways of a person getting in a car. And some of them are ways that you would never expect a person to get in a car, right? And it's not their fault. It's really not, because if you can't see, you don't know what's happening. The audience knows they're getting in a car, but they don't know where the seat's facing. They don't. You have to account for that. So if you're testing with people who know that they're getting in a big Amazon box and they're sliding down and they're going to hit the floor or hit this old mattress, they know to brace themselves. But if you
Mhm.
have an audience who are expecting it to be safe, they're probably expecting in a slide
Mhm.
to slide and have like that curve to stop, not an immediate and abrupt like crash at the end.
Mhm. Carrie, what are your thoughts on all of this? Where do you think, what is the bottom line of safety these haunts should have?
Well, definitely, if the industry doesn't regulate themselves, somebody will try to come in and regulate it. I mean, and it might be just community based, not like a community be like, well, if you're going to have people in this area, you might need to have smoke detectors. You might need to have emergency exits. You might need to have, this. That's one form of regulation. But the industry probably does need to have panels and talk about it. Brandon had a big list of things, like they didn't do this, they didn't have this. Like that would be a great, like just even to get information to see if a haunt or a show is safe, or if you're into it, just even if that's on their website of, hey, these are some of the safety precautions, or this is the checklist. I'm not saying you have to give away secrets. You could, or maybe put it in a separate location of like, if you want spoilers, read here if you're concerned about something. But I mean, Thomas is right. If I'm helping build it, then I can't be the tester. I mean, it's kind of the same thing in IT. If I'm the programmer isn't the final tester, because they're going to do different things. I mean, just like in real life. I think they do need other people to test things. That's 100% right. But there does need to be self-regulation.
And that's usually what beta testing is for. You know, I've got a show coming up that I'm trying to do, and I'm definitely going to take like an unknown person into the show first and see how it works out on them. You know, just for safety reasons, like, okay, you know, and then decomp with them afterwards. Okay, what could I do better on this end? What do you think I shouldn't do? How was this part? How was that part? You know, and that's just stuff I plan on doing. You know, I mean, I can't tell anybody else what to do.
Well, I'm just gonna. I think regulations are. I personally think regulations are terrible. I just think they're, and I don't think it can be regulated. If I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's impossible. Even from a regulation standpoint, given that, you know, kind of like what Thomas or not. Yeah, what Thomas said, and he made a good point when we first started this. He called it an art form. An art form is protected by the First Amendment, right? And you know, if we're going to look at other places as far as from a regulation standard, no other extreme type activity has any type of specific regulations, especially when it comes to art. And this has actually already been litigated to a very small degree. A case I'd like to bring to attention is Miller versus California. Back in 1973. That's more around obscenity, but it still revolves in that same type of orbit. But look at this community as it is. Look at what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now is kind of a self, you know, keeping our own little self industry in check. Before I go to any place, new place I've never been before, I'm going to talk to, you know, another person, right? I mean, Thomas Dargnell is a perfect example. I don't know how long I spoke to him about other haunts that maybe he's been to, right? And word gets around quick, right? And if something's not safe, then people are going to know pretty quickly, right? So that's my thought.
I mean, there's still always going to be risk because you don't know who's going to create a pop-up show. I mean, another Russ McKamey could pop up and nobody would know it. I mean, it's hard to kind of get information. I get that every show is like, oh, we got to keep it secret, blah, blah, blah. But I get it, but you also need to be probably open with at least the safety and the waiver as well.
No. So, years ago, there was a creator that has since been canceled and pushed away, but this all came from faceless creators. And I think that line got really, because of that one instance, that line got driven hard into the sand. And now people in the community I've seen being very open, like, I'm the creator of this. It's not hidden anymore. So I don't see what the big difference really is with that, and then with having to have some kind of safety standard. I mean, as Brandon, I know Carrie mentioned, Brandon had a list of things to say. I think that should just be standard. Anybody?
Brandon, you don't agree with me that the waiver should be easily obtained?
Absolutely not. There needs to be the waiver should be able to be viewed before a show and should be able to keep a copy prior to a show. In my opinion, that's what I believe. And so far, all of the reputable extreme haunts that I've been to have done that, except for, I don't know. I'm not going to consider McKamey Manor an extreme show, so I'm not going to put them in that same category. But everyone that I've been to that has taken place, but actually publicly available on a website, absolutely not.
Well, I mostly like provided beforehand. The show I went to, it was not provided beforehand. At least it wasn't to me. I was in a dark room that I couldn't see.
So
That was my experience for that one show. I'm not saying they all do that. I don't know.
I mean, I can see what Carrie's saying with a waiver.
Like even the day before, why?
Because there's travel involved. I mean, how
right.
do you're going to pay for all this stuff, get there, and then find out you can't do half of it,
True.
I think there should be something there that doesn't have to maybe go in as in depth on stuff, but like if you're going to be crawling, if you're going to have physical contact, I think that stuff should be stated somewhere prior.
Well,
let me ask you guys, both Brandon and Chris, you've been to 17th Door, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been to 17th Door. Their waiver has been online for years, and like it's not overtly exposing, but it's not like it's also kind of vague sometimes on some of the stuff you're doing, and it doesn't really give away a lot in some instances. Like, yeah, you're going to get bugs, but also like, you may experience this and that yeah,
even that. I think the use of may, because then you can throw out things that you might not experience by having that simple word of may in there, but you're also covering your ass because maybe I don't want to even risk getting bugs on me.
Yeah.
Well, so
but I like.
Go ahead. Sorry.
My point is that it does exist in a space, and most of the shows I've worked with that are private, extreme immersives, like there's usually a waiver that you get beforehand, like through an email, and it's got trigger warnings in it, and like here's the things you're going to experience in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
well, one of the things that Russ is getting sued for is the fact that his waiver, or let's just call it a quote unquote waiver, it was not given to the his consumers at some point, right before the actual event. That is a legal standard to a small degree, right? When not getting sued, I'm sorry, getting investigated for. I don't know why I said that. Sued, but one thing to Carrie's point, she said that she was in a dark room, and again, Carrie, I wasn't with you every step of the way that when we were at that extreme haunt, but when I was there, we had to go up, hand our ID, hold the piece of paper, and we had to read it line by line into a camera. Did you not experience that?
Yeah, that happened, but we were also, before that, we were in a dark room and given, I mean, the part you had to read was only, a paragraph or so. But then the package, though, was probably like 6 pages. And there was a signature on that package that before then. But almost what I'm saying, like, you've already paid your money, you've already traveled, you're in at that point. At that point that happened, we had already been in the show for like 2 hours. To that point, it's almost too late. I'm just saying, like, why can't you give it to me even 5 hours ahead of time, or the day before, travel?
I was going to say, I'm sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, well, I wasn't just going to say, I was going to, my only rebuttal to that is that Crucible or the show that we attended up to the point of us signing, I don't remember the show actually beginning, in the sense that given the context of what the show actually was compared to that aspect, I don't personally consider that the show being
The
started at
fact
that
that I
time.
couldn't sit down, in my opinion, meant the show had already started. The fact that they were already like yelling at people, you were having to, walk back and forth. To me, that had already started. If they're already yelling at people and knocking stuff out of their hands and saying kind of crappy things to people, I know that's part of the show, but to me, it had started. And that
So-
might be because I'm new, but that's going to be for anybody that's new.
Mhm. So you had mentioned even 5 hours before. Do you think 5 hours before is even? I mean, at that point, you're already there.
I know, and that's what I was saying, where they're recording you and you have to read everything. So I'm sure that's legal stuff. I mean, it's almost like too late. You've already paid money. You're already there. You're already inside. You've already waited 2 hours or however long it was. Like, it really, in my opinion, it really should be given, at least before travel. I mean, I get the whole secret part, but if you go to their website, it's just maybe like a video. It's on YouTube, and then it's like, pay here, buy tickets. It's like, okay. I mean, I get the secrecy part, and it's different. Like if Thomas was running a show and he was only running it for 10 people, I know Thomas, I trust Thomas. That's not as big of a deal.
But
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting to see things from different perspectives. So, like Carrie, you're a new audience member. You're new to this stuff, and I think from a new audience perspective, it is very good to have a waiver ahead of time. Like, I personally am of the opinion that where even if waivers are signed on site and maybe they're not shown before you buy a ticket, you'll have like a list of some things that could be in this show, and like before you buy a ticket, and then you get the waiver in advance and still sign it on site so you can read it ahead of time, like just for new audience members to read it and kind of anticipate what to expect while still signing it on site. And from my perspective, as someone who has been to quite a few shows, waivers are kind of all the same to an extent. Like they cover a lot of like similar things. Like, you might have impact, you might have electric shock, you might have like water or bugs or something like that, to a point where as you attend more, especially from my perspective, it's less important to get it way ahead of time. But I do think it is important for those who are new to have a resource or the ability to see the waiver ahead of time, even if it's after they buy a ticket, to then get a copy of the waiver that they can read at their leisure before signing it on site. I do think that's important.
And I'm guessing the show wants people that actually wants to be there, and not people who show up and go, ooh, that's not really what I mean, to be honest, that time, Brandon, when we were in the room, I had the paper and they're recording you and you're reading it. I basically blacked out. I couldn't even tell you. I blacked out doing it. I was just so nervous. You got everybody standing around you, waiting on you. There's people behind you waiting on you to finish reading this and listen to you like read. It's that itself is nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the
you're under
pre-show is
pressure.
getting your nerves up. Yeah.
Well,
I'll say, as someone who's
Go
also
ahead.
done that haunt, I think, well, yes, I do think they, for that one in particular, should absolutely send the waiver ahead of time. I do think they do a good job as well of asking you, like, hey, is there anything on there that you can't do, or that you're not okay with? And then they'll note it down. And in my experience, the things that I told them I couldn't do were really respected and honored.
Well, to jump on that bandwagon, I also don't. And again, I've been a lot, and so, and I think a lot of people in here have been to that particular haunt a lot. But every time that I've gone, I've had an interview, and during that interview, they laid out, a lot of of aspects of the show without giving anything away, right? Stuff to kind of prepare for, and this, that, and the other. Granted, I can't speak for everybody else, but that's been my experience, and that's always been done within a couple weeks of the actual show. However, I forget what else I was going to say, but yeah, they do a really good job of that, in my opinion. Carrie, did they not give you like an interview?
She gave me an interview like the night before or earlier that day. Like,
sorry.
and that's all. I mean, and we did talk through stuff, but then again, doing it the night before, or that day, it might have been that day. That's again was almost too late. Like, I'm there now. I was going to Utah for fun, but you're already kind of there. I mean,
Right.
for a new, like, I was going for other reasons as well, but it's hard to get information about some places.
Yeah, I was about to say you were a last minute ticket buyer, weren't you? For it, like you weren't going to go.
I was a last minute ticket buyer, but not truly last minute. I mean, I think it was like 2 weeks ahead of time.
Oh, was it that far?
Yeah, it was quite a bit. It wasn't like the day before.
That's what I was in my head thinking, that it was like the day before.
It wasn't the day before. I was in Nashville. Yeah, when they posted on their Instagram. And
I put this comment up because I think this is an important subject. Some shows, the waiver signing is part of the experience. While I love that, I agree. You now are in a very gray area.
Yeah. No. In my opinion, no. The waiver signing needs to be a standalone activity before the show actually starts. If they're putting their hands on you before you sign a waiver, that's a huge no-go in my opinion.
Well, it makes the waiver immediately invalid if you're
well, there's no point in even having a waiver at that point, to Carrie's point, right? Like, what the heck's the point? Now, again, in my opinion, what I mean by that is by show starting, that they're actually putting hands on you and that the narrative of the show has begun, right? If you're sitting there, like 17th Door, in my opinion, like you're sitting there signing and they're joking around with you and kind of hollering at you a little bit, but while you're outside, it's funny that, I remember when Chris and I did it, it was kind of just fun and kind of the spirit of what we're about to do, but nobody touched us, right? Nobody put their hands on us. Then the actual narrative actually hasn't started, but like what Russ does, where he's messing with you and putting you through all these BS activities as you're signing. Yeah. To Carrie's point, that's duress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'll say I'm guilty of doing that and making or not of touching people while it's happening, but of making the waiver a part of the experience. And every time I've done it, it's the first thing that happens before we ever touch anyone. But we're starting to, we work it into the narrative to some extent. So like Brandon, you came to Revelation, the very first thing you do is sign a waiver, but you're signing the waiver with a character. And then the show starts. And there's never any rush to push people to read it fast or sign it immediately, but it's still, they're given it ahead of time to peruse and read it and then sign it on site.
They didn't, but they weren't pressuring me. I was more pressuring. Oh, yeah. I mean, you are standing in a darkish room with a camera on you and reading out loud in front of everybody, but that's more my issues.
But Darknell, I don't want you to spank yourself too daggone hard.
Oh,
now.
Yeah, no, I know.
All right, because we were on a park. Well, I don't know. You tell me to shut up whenever I said too much. But we're on a daggone park bench, and High Speed is across from me with his little mask on, and he wasn't really saying a whole lot.
Yeah. No.
And we didn't progress forward until my dumb ass understood exactly what I just read, and that I knew exactly what I was signing. There was a consent was established and understanding was established for, and I know I'm not the exception to the rule. You did that to lottie-dottie everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Brandon, didn't you get grabbed before signing the waiver in the movie?
What?
That's what this person commented. In Monster Inside, I'm assuming, when you were in miasma at the end.
No,
Um,
well, so what they? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on. I want you to explain
No,
this.
Miasma sent the waiver, like, so. I don't know. I guess I don't want to speak on what they do traditionally, but
Mm,
I had to sign those production releases, right? And I also had to sign a DocuSign waiver from Miasma beforehand, right? So I signed it, and then I signed it there again at that time, right?
mhm.
So I was signing it twice. I signed it more than once, right? So I don't know where that kind of plays into that, but that's how that progression of things started. They sent it to me kind of like what Zodiac Cycle did. Zodiac Cycle did the same thing. Sent it via DocuSign. I signed it, and then DocuSign gave me a copy. Well, Miasma did the exact same thing.
So, Cash, I would like if you could dive into this a little more. The waiver simply told me what was possible. I don't look at it as a checklist. Do you guys kind of understand what Cass is saying there with that?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Okay,
I know
well,
that there's some.
Yeah.
I know that there's some groups that have the same exact, like, identical waiver for every single show. That has a list of possibilities for anything they could ever do to you, and so that's why May is on there, because any of these things may happen, but it doesn't mean they will for sure. Especially in some shows where there's multiple tracks that you're going on, and you're getting split up and doing different things and having different things happen to you. Like that, it covers that. And then also it's just easy to have like one waiver that you hand to everyone, and without potentially spoiling what could happen in a show.
Well, and what kind of brought up this whole point to begin with is what happened to that participant, right? With the surgery in the ankle. Like, even if that particular person got the waiver, 6 months before the show, nothing's going to stop. I mean, that wouldn't have prevented that show's complacency, in my opinion, right? And I totally get what you're saying, Chris, about no doing pitchforks, but I mean, at the same time, it seems like a wanton disregard for her safety, right? And if there's been more than one complaint and stuff like that is still going on, at what point is it just blatant reckless, just reckless
Well,
endangerment of participants,
weren't all the complaints the same stunt on the same day, but brought to them after this one?
Okay, can you help me understand this? Because the email that she said that slide thing was taken out afterwards, right? But more than one person has said that other people were injured on a slide. Was that a slide from a previous year, or did they
No.
not take it out?
Yeah, so there were 3 people injured on this slide in February.
Goodness.
Yeah, two of them were more minor, like a sprain, or, well, one of those 2 might be less minor. We don't know yet. And then there was the one major injury with the fracture, and then they took the slide out.
Yeah, that's Thomas. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's irresponsible.
I'd agree. Yeah, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why did it take? I mean, at what point does somebody have to die? You know what I'm saying? Like at what point do you actually have to take it out? In my opinion, you take it out the second that you're knowing that you're putting somebody through something that is going to cause a serious injury, right? An injury requiring some sort of medical attention. I don't know. That just seems like complacency.
But I'm playing devil's advocate on this. At what point did they know it was the issue?
Yellow Facets also in chat just said something that is also very true. The slide in October was pretty shady.
Another slide, and they didn't learn their lesson?
Yeah.
Come on.
What's with these people in slides?
Like it just seems like, but see, here's the deal. Like, this is why we have, civil lawsuits, right? Like, I'm just saying, something like that just seems like blatant negligence on their part.
Yeah, I
Just
would
seems
agree.
like blatant negligence. And, I don't know if it was me, that's something that I might seriously consider. I mean, because Thomas, didn't you say that it happened at, or where did it take place at? I wrote it down, what you said, a basement art gallery,
Yeah, it was a
right?
basement
Oh yeah,
art
the
gallery.
basement in an art gallery. Yeah.
So Casa may not have insurance per se. I guarantee you that there's property insurance on that basement art gallery, on that art gallery, and that you don't sue Casa, you sue them, right? That's how these people are going to be held accountable. It's kind of like if somebody injured themselves on my property, right? They're not suing me; they're suing my homeowner's insurance. You know what I mean?
hmm
So I don't know. It just
And then look
that
at
really.
this one. Another one from last year.
Okay,
Came down
yeah,
the
that's
slide,
nasty.
And
Yeah, that's
they went and got shoved into exposed rebar and brick. What, is the slide the only thing that happens at this show?
No.
Should be called like La Casa de Slide.
Would the slide be safer if they weren't in a box? Like that way you at
It,
least
it would have
can-
been safer if they weren't in a box because they could see
Mhm.
what was coming and brace
Yeah, like
themselves.
even if there's a little bit of a light, you can see how to brace yourself. And it should be more than a mattress. That just sounds gross.
How about just no slide?
Okay,
Right?
a slide kind of sounds fun, but I don't want to break my foot.
Well, it's like it. I don't know. I mean, Thomas, that guy, slides are kind of cheap. Y'all don't use slides. 17th door never uses
I don't.
slides.
Yeah, I don't use slides.
17th
Slides
don't
are,
use slides?
slides are too fun. I don't want people to have.
I don't know. I think 17th door actually might have used the slide at one point, but like an actual slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they? I've
I don't-
been going to 17th door.
It might have been during one of like the college years of the
Maybe.
Yeah.
I know they've dropped people, and that's
Oh.
really
Oh yeah, and
So-
they've had issues with that too.
Yep.
Yeah. So Shay, it did get taken out eventually.
Yeah, and that's the problem. The
You can
eventually
have-
part.
One slide. It was Russ's
Oh.
slide into the mouth of the Cheshire cat. Yes, Russ even claimed to have a slide, although his slide didn't exist.
Zip line's kind of like a slide. Russ didn't even, I don't know, I guess you're blindfolded for the zip line, weren't you?
You're blindfolded for the zip line.
Oh wait, didn't Castle of Chaos has a small slide, don't they? But it's also very safe. It's like a tube slide that you like push yourself down. No,
You're talking
I'm
about
looking
Castle
at
of Chaos and not Crucible, right?
I think I think I had to go down it in Crucible, but
Oh, really?
I
Yeah.
never. I mean, unless that's new to the new extension.
it was
of the
super
haunt.
safe. They had like padding everywhere. It was really
Maybe
safe.
I only went through the whole old haunt. I didn't go after they did the extension, so maybe that was added. There wasn't one when I went through it though.
Well, Chris, did I do the extension?
No.
I went last year.
Oh yeah, you guys would have done the extension. Yes.
Oh, I mean, I've never done Castle of Chaos. I've only done Crucible, but on their premises, I believe they
Oh.
have one slide.
Huh.
I don't remember
just-
a slide.
I could be
but was
wrong. I could be
hiding behind
misremembering
PJ.
and thinking it's a different group, but
I mean,
they
I
just
I'm
vaguely
not.
doing
remember
a two?
going down one slide.
I'm definitely not going to argue with you. It's very possible.
Yeah, very small. Never. Okay, I'm probably misremembering or thinking something crazy. Sorry. I just
No
remember at
slides
one
at
extreme
cock.
haunt. I just remember at one extreme haunt, I went down a slide that was like probably the safest slide I've ever been down.
You're like, this is nice.
I was like, yeah, this is crazy. They had like a bar for you to like swing down and push yourself down. Yeah, I know Terror Vault has had a slide like 2 years in a row, and that one's also super safe. They have like 2 crash pads stacked on top of each other at the bottom, and it's like they have like a bar for you to swing down. It's awesome.
So it sounds like the issue is really just down to testing, and testing. Like you're
would say-
never too safe.
Well, egos too, right? Because testing obviously number one, but like how big of an ego do you have to have in order to keep moving forward with something that you know is going to cause injuries, right? I mean, it's just, man, that just irritates me.
Mhm.
I mean, I mean, what do you think, Chris? Do you think they just haphazardly did testing on it, or did they
Oh, I
not
think
go?
exactly like Thomas said. They probably sent down every actor down it, right?
Mhm.
And the actor knew exactly what to expect. And yes, you no matter what, if you know, hey, I'm going down, I know what this looks like, you're going to brace. Whether you try to or not, your body is going to brace for it. Where you have somebody who has no idea that's going on, the variables are there. They're going to get hurt. They're going to move just the right
Well,
way
I
or
mean,
not brace.
they were in a box. They wouldn't know to brace.
Right,
Yeah, that's the problem.
and that's the thing. If you acted there, even if you're in that box, I gotta, your tense going all the way down, you're gonna be fine. You need to have the right test audience, and so yeah, you could test it extensively, and we don't know for sure. I just want to put that out there. We don't know for sure the testing. This is all speculation. Just an assumption that that's probably what happened if they tested it a lot and nobody got hurt.
Yeah, they knew. Like, yeah, they definitely knew to brace themselves. That mean.
Well, everybody, is there anything else that we want to add before we start wrapping up? Let's see. One actor mentioned to me that they were trying to do the Casa February slides backwards with less than great results after my injury.
Oh, hell no. Hell no on that one.
Mm-mm. Well, I would say that this is a good thing. That we talked about transparency earlier, and as much as that, the shows themselves thrive in this kind of elusive nature, right? Experiences afterwards and the patrons' experiences afterwards are far from in the dark, right? People talk all the time. There's discords. There's all kinds of stuff. So I'm glad that we're definitely having this discussion, and I'm glad that these discussions are being held, especially among other creators, like some of the bigger creators, Brink, for example, right? He's all over this, right? Like, and Brink talks to lottie dottie everybody. So stuff like this is definitely not in the dark, especially when it happens to a beloved member of the community, like that person, you know. I mean, I can't think of any other community that does something like this, right?
No, and I wonder, is somebody earlier? It might have been even Boston that said it in there. Is there like a scale, like a grading system? Is there a community panel where these people? I mean, then you get into politics like favoritism and that. I don't think you'll ever get out of people saying anything about that, but where they go through as part of the beta test to these haunts and then they give it a grading, and that grading, like, well, it's not that you have to have it done, but if you do have it done, it maybe gives some more credit towards your venue,
Yes.
gives you more of a safe feeling. But like, let's say maybe Thomas is like, no, I just want to do my own thing. Thomas doesn't have to do it. Just like, it's like when I worked in the food industry, we had it was basically like a food inspection company. They would come, and it wasn't the health code. It wasn't the health company coming and checking on stuff. It was an actual company that we paid to come and make sure all our restaurants were running correctly and people weren't going to get sick.
Yeah, Zodiac Cycle did that on their first show. I remember it was like invite only, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was a very good idea.
Well, all right, guys. I want to thank you all for coming on panel. I think this was a good conversation, and I would like to have more conversations like this personally about different subjects in the community. Just a nice open discussion with everyone. I want to thank everybody down below in chat. Thank you for coming. Thomas, Tim, do you have anything that you want to promote or links you want to give at all?
I mean, I feel like people here know Perspicum Immersive. And then all I can really say for promotion is if you know, you know. And then that's all I can say right now.
Well, if that guy's not going to do it,
Well, yeah, there's 17th door every September through October. And then I've got my own personal stuff with Tattered and Frayed. You can find it on Instagram. And there is stuff coming in the pipeline right now. You know?
Sweet. Can't wait for both of those shows. When is Brandon's next basement party?
3 months.
All right, guys. Carrie, thank you for being here. Thomas, Tim, Brandon, thank you for being up here. And thank you, everyone in chat. Everybody have a good night. Bye.